Hello everybody and welcome to History Bite number 47, dated September 20th, 2020. I'm Walter, your mobile historian and blue-collar scholar. This History Bite is entitled America's Chief Justices. Since the commencement of operations in 1789, the Supreme Court of the United States has had 17 men serve as its Chief Justice. Today, the position is officially known as the Chief Justice of the United States. We will go down the list of all 17 Chief Justices from John Jay to John Roberts, and I will state their years of service in that position. We will not go into heavy detail on the individual profiles of these men, as that is better served in individual history bites. So let's begin. Beginning with our first office holder, John Jay. John Jay was America's first Chief Justice, the inaugural office holder of that position from 1789 until his resignation in 1795 to become governor of the state of New York. Next, Chief Justice John Rutledge, who served but a few months in 1795. Rutledge had been given the position by way of a recess appointment from President George Washington. When the Senate reconvened in December of 1795, his nomination was rejected and he left office. Rutledge was therefore the first U.S. Supreme Court nominee whose nomination was rejected by the Senate. Next, Chief Justice Oliver Ellsworth. Chief Justice Ellsworth served from 1796 until his resignation in 1800. Next, Chief Justice John Marshall. Chief Justice Marshall served from 1801 until his death in 1835. He was the longest serving Chief Justice in American history, 34 years, the great Chief Justice. Next, Chief Justice Roger B Tani. Chief Justice Tani served from 1836 until his death in 1864. Next, Chief Justice Salmon P. Chase. Chief Justice Chase served from 1864 until his death in 1873. Next, Chief Justice Morrison Waite. Chief Justice Waite served from 1874 until his death in 1888. Next, Chief Justice Melville Fuller. Chief Justice Fuller served from 1888 until his death in 1910. Indeed, Fuller looked so much like author Mark Twain that people often mistook one for the other. If you don't believe me, look it up. Melville Fuller and Mark Twain. Next, Chief Justice Edward White. Chief Justice White served from 1910 until his death in 1921. Next, Chief Justice William Howard Taft. Chief Justice Taft served from 1921 until his death in 1930. If you will recall, Chief Justice Taft was the only person ever to serve on the Supreme Court of the United States who was a former president of the United States. Next, Chief Justice Charles Evans Hughes. Chief Justice Hughes served from 1930 until his resignation in 1941. Next, Chief Justice Harlan Fisk Stone. Chief Justice Stone served from 1941 until his death in 1946. Next, Chief Justice Frederick Moore Vinson. Chief Justice Vinson served from 1946 until his death in 1953. Next, Chief Justice Earl Warren. Chief Justice Warren served from 1953 until his retirement in 1969. Next, Chief Justice Warren E. Burger. Chief Justice Burger served from 1969 until his retirement in 1986. Next, Chief Justice William Hubbs Rehnquist. Chief Justice Rehnquist served from 1986 until his death in 2005. And last but not least, Chief Justice John G. Roberts, who has served from 2005 to the present day. That concludes America's Chief Justices. All 17 of these individuals have left individual legacies on the Supreme Court, and Chief Justice Roberts, our incumbent Chief Justice, is indeed building a very, very positive legacy for himself. He has done so in his 15 years on the bench in many, many ways. Some would speculate, arguably, that he is now at the center of the court with the retirement of Justice Anthony Kennedy in 2018, as Chief Justice Roberts has certainly shown a tendency to side with the more left-leaning justices just as much, if not more these days, than the right-leaning justices. For him at this point, the subject matter means everything, and thus I cannot classify Roberts either right or left, but directly what I honestly believe he is in the court's center, both in theory and in fact, as Chief Justice and at its ideological center. So that about concludes this, and I thank you very much for listening to this History Bite. If you have any questions, controversies, if you wish to contest anything I've said here, please feel free to leave it in the comments below. I appreciate you listening. Please continue to listen to these History Bites. Take care. Stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you at the next one. Peace.